participated in our LinkedIn poll, I just want to share with you the results on it. So the question was, what's the key to successful service line development in healthcare? And 59% said understanding patient needs. So I think all of us in the room understand that the patient is first, and that's what makes us also successful. Following that at 26% is data-informed prioritization. 11% said unique specialty strategies, and then 4% said robust marketing plans. So with that, we will kick off our program, and I'm going to introduce our moderator for the night, Dr. Rochelle Perino, thank you, is currently an instructor in the Department of Management at Nova. Prior to joining Nova Southeastern University, she has previously worked as an executive level in several industries, including hospitals, healthcare, soft goods, and real estate property management. She previously worked as a management consultant offering advisory services to various companies, from startup to major publicly traded and nonprofit organizations. She's a South Florida native, and she received her education from local universities, getting her Bachelor's of Science degree in Management from Barry University, her Master's in Business Administration from University of Miami, and a PhD in Public Health with a concentration in Health Systems Research from Florida International University. So we've got a lot of universities covered there. She also holds several industry-specific certifications, including a fellow of our college, so thank you for your commitment, and certified healthcare financial manager with Healthcare Financial Management Association. So it's my pleasure to invite you up here tonight.
Well, good evening. I'm very pleased to be here with you and share this wonderful stage with the very terrific panel that we have this evening. So I'm just going to kick it off with a couple of things here. We're going to be doing a deep dive into... Okay, here we go. Okay, this evening we're going to be doing a deeper dive into service line development. And the first thing I'd like to do is to introduce you to our incredible panel this evening. So I'm going to start with Maureen Mann, who's Vice President for Lynn Cancer Institute, Lynn Women's Health and Wellness Institute at Boca Raton Regional Hospital. And Maureen, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Thank you. Well, good evening, and I'm so glad you're all here. I started my career at Holmes Regional Medical Center in Number as an administrative resident under a gentleman named Ned Wilford. His brother Dan was also a healthcare administrator, and both of them, I believe, are in the Hall of Fame. So it was a great learning environment for me, and that's when I joined ECG. I've been a member a long time and a fellow a long time as well. But I came to Boca Regional 8.5 years ago, having spent the prior 15 years at Holy Cross Hospital in Fort Lauderdale, and have loved every minute of my time at Boca Regional. It's an incredible organization. Jared said that Bethesda is the top of the crown. Well, we're the headband that has all the jewels. So it's a great place to work, and I'm glad to be here tonight with this.
We're going to pass it on to Michelle Slane. Michelle is Vice President for Memorial Cardiac and Vascular Institute at Memorial Healthcare System.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for inviting me to be here to speak. So my career started many years ago, in 1980. I am a registered nurse, and I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I worked with a renowned cardiac surgeon by the name of Dr. McGovern at Allegheny General Hospital. And that is where my love for cardiology and cardiac surgery started. So I have been with the Memorial Healthcare System since 2005 for 18 years, and I'm the vice president. And prior to that, I did work for HCA, and I worked at Westside Regional Medical Center from 1995 to 2005, and I was the director of nursing over their cardiac program, and actually I started open heart surgery at Westside Regional. One of my claims to fame in my career is I worked as a nurse on a cruise ship. I was on the SS Norway back in 1985, 86, and 87, and at that time the SS Norway was the world's largest cruise ship. So nursing I have always loved, and I am really happy to be here tonight and to share all the accomplishments and what we have done to make our service line what it is. Thank you.
Now I'm going to introduce you Elizabeth Rochane, Chief Operating Officer for Wellington Regional Medical Center.
Good evening. First off, I've never worked on a cruise ship, so you have a beat on that. It's very impressive. But I am the Chief Operating Officer of Wellington Regional Medical Center. I've been there for about 9 months, but I actually worked there 6, 7, 8 years ago as the Associate Administrator. I actually worked with our current CEO. She was the COO back then, and I worked with Samantha, who's here, our Business Development Director. She was the Physician Relations Manager back then. So I've been part of the community for a long time. I had the opportunity to go up to Washington, D.C. after being the Associate Administrator at Wellington Regional, and then I was the COO at a hospital in Tallahassee just prior to coming back to Wellington Regional. My background's originally in audiology, so I have a clinical background, but I switched over and got my healthcare MBA from Vanderbilt University, and I really love this community. I love being part of Palm Beach County, and I'm very excited to be here tonight to speak to you about service lines.
Thank you so much for the introductions. Okay, so we're going to start our conversation with a little bit of an overview on service line development. And a couple of things we just wanted to note is that healthcare systems previously have focused on clinical programs and specialties with the highest patient volumes and the strongest financial margins. But now, things are changing a little bit. And so what we have now is what we call the future state. And the future state is more towards growing high-value service lines. And at its core, as this slide says, it's maximizing the value for patients, achieving the best outcomes at the lowest cost. And we're moving from and away from a supply-driven healthcare system, which is being organized more around what physicians do, and toward a patient-centered system, which is more organized around what patients actually need. And again, we're shifting our focus from volume and maybe the numbers, the profitability of services provided, more towards trying to achieve quality patient outcomes. And in order to begin that journey, and as our panelists will be discussing very shortly, to grow those high volume or high value service lines takes a couple of different components in there. Number one is taking a look at what the market and the competitors are doing, taking a look also and incorporating your physician and your provider teams. The clinical performance outcomes becomes an important component in your journey when you're starting to look at developing a service line. The operational aspects of it and how it's going to become integrated into the rest of the operations and the rest of the healthcare system. Breaking internal silos, that came up as a conversational point because many times hospitals, in particular healthcare systems, tend to be very individualized in terms of what they're performing and interested in their operation, and maybe not as wanting to incorporate themselves and become part of a bigger picture. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. And also the physical facility. When you're looking at developing a high-value service line, do you have the actual physical facility to bring that to fruition and to make sure that we're able to actually support that? And then, of course, we always have the financial implications. So again, these are just some of the thoughts that come to mind when you're looking to create that very high-value service line, but nonetheless, it's all the things that are very important to make sure that it's considered in the picture. And many times when you're taking a look at your service lines or the development of one, there are some tough choices that have to be made. So the business environment will sometimes dictate that they're going to have to consider eliminating an actual service line. And there have been cases, and I know you are well aware of those situations when maybe there's been a duplication of services within the community. And behavioral health is one that has happened, maybe not necessarily in our area, but in other communities, there's been behavioral health possibly duplication. The religious, political, and financial implications. And one that comes to mind on that is OBGYN. This is an announcement. But OBGYN is an area that has experienced some, in some cases, certain healthcare organizations have decided that they might eliminate that service for a variety of different reasons. And then last but not least is just plain dollars, which we're going to talk about here on the next slide, because there was a recent survey that was done through HFM Journal. Actually, I just got the results yesterday, and 88% of healthcare financial executives felt that the payment methodologies really are not yet prepared to tie payment to value. So as much as we're going to be talking about a value-based system, but nonetheless, some of the components of our healthcare system is not necessarily yet built to support all of the things that maybe we want to do with regards to a patient-centered program. So in their words, they said it would be very difficult or somewhat difficult to actually ensure that we went from a good healthcare system to what they term as good health. But again, we're here today to discuss the future and what we see coming up in the horizon and what is also currently being done by our current healthcare facilities here in our South Florida area. And the future state is we're in the process of growing those high-value service lines. So what we're looking at is value-based care models, which are going to be emphasizing and are emphasizing currently quality of care, outcomes, and cost effectiveness. So to start our service line development panel discussion, we have some questions we're going to be posing to our panelists. Oops, please get that. Here we go, question number one. So question number one is discuss the service line that you are responsible for and how does it fit into the organization. So who would like to start?
I can start. So I am over the Cardiac and Vascular Institute at Memorial Healthcare System. And the MCVI is a very comprehensive service line, and we do it all and we do it well. We do it from in utero when a woman is pregnant with our Joe DiMaggio Children's Hospital and the baby may have a congenital heart disease that they can intervene on all through their lifestyle and that. So we do total heart care. And besides the normal things that a CVI would do like cardiac surgery, EP, and cath, we also do heart transplant and VAD and ECMO and adult congenital heart disease. The truth of the matter is because some of these services are so advanced that we have turned Memorial Regional Hospital from a tertiary hospital to a quaternary hospital, that patients are coming for our service outside of our healthcare system and that. And so my CVI, or that service line at Memorial, is the largest service line that we have, and that we have a lot of great quality outcomes that we'll talk about with the next questioner. So, any questions or concerns? Or
We're going to save questions for that.
All right, and I am lucky enough to have two service lines at Boca Regional. I have the Lynn Cancer Institute and the Lynn Women's Health and Wellness Institute. Both of those have a different role that they play in the organization, but both of them developed organically from the community, in our community. And part of that journey happened because Boca, as you're aware, is a very prosperous and privileged community where our biggest competitor for a long time was the airport. And our team said, we need to fix that, and we need to figure out how to create a service line system that allows patients to know that they truly are going to get the best quality healthcare that they possibly could. So our Cancer Institute started back in the 1980s in the hospital, really being driven by our radiation oncology department. So it was a single area of focus, and it grew to the point where in 2008 we were very fortunate to be able to build a 96,000 square foot facility that housed almost all of the oncology related services under one roof. And we moved from having pieces of cancer care offered around the community to bringing all of those under one roof. And that allowed us to develop a model of comprehensive cancer care that at the time didn't really exist anywhere in South Florida, and certainly not in South Palm Beach County. So from there, we've been able to grow our services and add incredible technology from the very basic all the way through to we're breaking ground this month on a proton facility. So we've really been able to bring in technology. We have excellent clinicians that are on top of all of the newest advances in medical oncology care, and we have now developed a very robust line of surgical oncology subspecialists to allow the patients to get the best clinical care, supported by the most amazing supportive care services at 4 different locations, soon to be 5. So it's a big, busy service line. And its sister is our Women's Health and Wellness Institute, and that is also great. And that, I was speaking earlier, we're very, very fortunate in Oakland to have the community supporting us. This is their hospital, and now that we're part of Baptist, they know we're part of an even bigger organization, but they want us to continue to be the hospital that serves them. So the women's program started back in the early 1990s when one physician brought from her training at the University of Miami this newfangled thing called the mammogram. And she got put into the corner of a little old condominium style building on the campus of Boca Regional in one corner. And she brought her mammogram machine, and that was the beginning. She was able to get involved in research, which is very important to both my service lines, and she became internationally known for developing new technologies. That then translated to 2015 when we were able to move into a 46,000 square foot facility that brought lots of the women's services under one roof. Everything related to breast care, from a screening mammogram through diagnosis. Physicians that start with primary care, go to preventive cardiology, cardio-oncology, urogynecology, all again under one roof to make it convenient and work for the woman and not make the woman have to go multiple places. So those are the two service lines that I'm fortunate to work with.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So I have the opportunity to work with many different service lines. We have a flatter organizational structure, so most of our directors serve as the service line leaders, and I'll speak more broadly and generally about the different hospitals that I've worked at, so not just Wellington Regional, because I've had the opportunity to oversee different service lines at different facilities. But really, I am able to work with our service line experts and the rest of the executive team to really understand the needs of the community, to be able to work on enhancing them and to bring more services based on whatever the community is. So that's really my role, and so I don't have as much of the specific knowledge as these two ladies, but I am more of a generalist who's able to work closely and learn what the service lines are. And so really at Wellington Regional, we have a very strong neurosciences service line. We're the only comprehensive stroke center in the western communities now in Palm Beach County, and then we also have a very large assisted services program that we hosted last year in Palm Beach County, which surprises people sometimes. But we also have the longest standing level 3 NICU. We have a great partnership with Joe DiMaggio, who's in babies there for that long-term care. But we have very, very skilled, talented staff who work on the service lines. So we continue to assess what service lines are needed. But every hospital really works to bring the best access and care to their patients. And that's really why service lines exist and why we have that in our hospitals.
I think our microphone is not working. Can you all hear this?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think something has really happened with it. It says it's on. Charles is just trying to see.
You know, we can stand up and project.
I think, yeah, we're gonna have to definitely project a little bit more. I apologize. We're trying to work on this.
Yeah. Okay.
So thank you. I don't think it matters how close you hold it
Yeah.
to
Right.
as well.
Right.
Okay, so thank you for those responses. The next question number 2, I'm gonna just have to yell, is describe the service line evolution and the development process at your facility. So when you're starting to think about a service line, what is the development process that you use at your hospital? And who would like to start? Oh, we got lots of people to start. Well, we'll start with you. Go ahead. Sure.
Okay, so it's interesting, this question, because we're actually right now working on building a brand new hospital. So that was one of the reasons I came back to Wellington Regional, because we're building the newest facility in many years in Palm Beach County. So we have the Allen B. Miller Medical Center up in Alton near Palm Beach Gardens. But a lot of this discussion is happening, and it's interesting to see it from the ground up and to talk about how you develop service lines, what the best approach is to the service lines. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're really working through that right now as we speak. Talking to the surgeons, the ones that are at the hospital currently, other surgeons in the community, asking them, what do you want in a new hospital? We have this great opportunity to build this and make it what our patients want, what our surgeons want. We have focus groups, we talk with them. We actually just went up into Palm Beach Gardens, our VP of development went up there and talked with the women's groups in Palm Beach Gardens. And so we're really going to the community and asking them what they need. And that's really a big piece of it. I know that was the 59% said the community needs assessment. And that absolutely is the starting point, the guiding star to what the community truly needs. And so we start with that at any hospital. You start a community needs assessment, and then you really look at what are your resources, what are your gaps, what are your needs, and then how do you get there. And so we really all work together. We do SWOT analyses, we meet with different groups, and we build our strategic plan every year so that we know what we generally will have for a roadmap moving forward. And so we're actually in that process right now. We're meeting with all of our charge nurses, we're meeting with all of our managers, our directors, our physicians, we're meeting with next week so that they can help us shape that strategy and so that they have buy-in. We don't have any employed physicians at our hospital, and so really it's about community impact and about them really wanting to be there and choosing our services. And so we have excellent relationships with our physicians, and I think that's always the cornerstone also of service line development, is you have to have those relationships, or else you don't have the support you need to grow those different service lines.
So I told you a little bit about how the 2 service lines I work most closely with grew organically. They both had, at the beginning and continue to have, strong community interaction. So at the Women's Institute, there was a committee of women that met on a regular basis for several years, talking about what is it that should be included in this new facility that we were going to build. And so we definitely listened to what our customers wanted and did everything we could to create a facility that was envisioned by women, designed by women, built by women, and now run by women. And that has just been a really successful model for us. Cancer program, as I described, grew organically. But one of our other service lines that my boss, Lula, runs is our neuroscience service line. And that service line happened a little bit differently, where there was a very well-to-do community member who said, I have roots in the north, and I know where I can get good care because I have a family history of neuroscience issues, and I don't have that confidence here. So I want you to work on building a service line here so that if I have a problem when I'm down here, I know I can get the very best care in Boca Raton. And so that one piece of information then grew into building a community coalition that helped us build our Neuroscience Institute that's now growing, thriving, and is located in multiple areas in South Palm Beach.
Okay, so the Memorial Cardiac Cardiac and Vascular Institute, the evolution of that service line started with our outcomes with cardiac surgery. So back in 2009, we made the decision to close our cardiac surgery program, meaning that we were going to hire our cardiac surgeons. And at that time also, we made the decision that we wanted to be transparent with our outcomes. And so we have a registry called STS, the Society of Thoracic Surgery, and they publicly report their results. And the highest report that you can get is a 3-star. And so back in 2009, they were going to publish these results. Nobody in South Florida published their STS results. It was a gamble. And when we decided to do this, we ended up having a 3-star STS rating in all 5 categories. Now, there were over 1,000 hospitals in this nation that were part of this STS, and Memorial was one of 17 hospitals that had 3-star in all 5 categories. Put us in the top 2% of the country for our outputs. And then we were showcased in our consumer reports of being one of the top hospitals in this country. So that was truly the genesis of the CBI and this service line with the Memorial Healthcare System. I was brought in 2005 as the administrative director. I overseen that service line, that product, and that since I came in. And in 2013, the healthcare system made the decision that they were going to elevate and promote me to a vice president to be over the service line. And at that time, we really only had 2 service lines, which were the Cancer Institute and the CBI. And I was lucky enough to be part of that. So the service lines do develop in the healthcare system because of the needs of the community, but everything is really based on the quality outcomes. Because if you have quality, we'll have growth, we'll have finance, and it all comes together. So now at Memorial, we have a service line over neuro, we have a service line over orthopedics, over behavioral health, and so all of our service lines are just growing. And so that's really the true evolution of the MCBI at Memorial.
Thank you. That was, thank you. It's really important to note some of the things that you mentioned, which is being very patient-focused, patient-centered. All of you mentioned that. And also the quality of your program. And if you have those key components, then that helps to build the program further, which is really, I hope you all can hear, because we're still trying to work on getting that microphone fixed, but it's very important pieces of what is building your service lines and keeping it very active and viable at your institution. So the next question is, what are the key measures in assessing the effectiveness of a clinical service line?
I can go
We'll
first.
start over. Well, we'll start this way. Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, you go.
All right.
Sure, get
Okay.
ready to go.
One of the keys is it's all about money. That's not the most important thing, but it is an important measure, and it is what outpatient service lines can bring to an organization. So return on investment is it's not something that's sexy or pretty, but it's really important because I worked a long time at a Catholic hospital and long ago worked at Mercy Hospital, another Catholic hospital, and the head nun said no money, no mission. And so I think that is a very important measure that you have to look at as you are designing or running your service lines. Additionally, you need to be sure you're measuring all those quality outcomes. What, in cancer, what's your survival rate? What are the certifications that are important in whatever that clinical area is? Is it the Commission on Cancer certification? Is it the AHA? Whichever of those, you want to be sure that you have those in place and that you're excelling at them. And then your patient satisfaction is key, because one of the things that you have to recognize is that people will use their feet and they will go somewhere else if you're not providing them with the service level they want and the quality outcomes that they need and expect.
Very well said.
So what's important to measure in service lines, safety is always our first priority, but quality is where it starts and stops. You need to have great quality outcomes. You need to be able to benchmark yourself against your competitors, what's going on here and there, South Florida. You also need to benchmark yourself against the rest of the country, where do you stand. So getting accreditations and certifications really validates your service line and gives credibility to your service line, so you're able to go out to the community, to the consumer, and say this is what we do. So in the FCBI, we have a lot of accreditations. We became accredited in adult congenital heart disease, which is a niche type program that not everybody takes care of adult congenital patients. We were the first ones in South Florida, we're the only ones in South Florida that are accredited in adult congenital heart disease. And we were the first out of 23 in the country to be accredited. We have ACC accreditation in heart failure. We have Joint Commission accreditation in math. Like I said, our 3-star rating. We also have gold status, which is a very elite status from ELSO for our ECMO program. And right now, we're going through an accreditation from ACC for our cath lab, for cath PCI. And when we're done with that, we'll probably go for TAVR. We're always reinventing ourselves to be able to show everyone that we have great quality outcomes. The other thing is growth, because with growth, then you'll have finance and that. And I'm proud to say at Memorial that we are the market leader in Broward County for our cardiac surgery program, for cath PCI, and for TAVR. So those are some key things that we look at Memorial with our service lines.
I think a lot was touched on by Michelle, but something else I think to consider besides obviously all those different factors is really looking at how it also affects other areas of the hospital. So I think people think there's a service line and it's comprehensive stroke or it's inpatient rehab and that's it, and that's what you look at. But really looking at, does it produce additional procedures or additional CT visits, x-rays, etc. I think that's important to get the whole holistic view of what a service line is and why it's important and who it affects. And so I think that really ultimately it does come down to patient experience. So our president of our company, which is UHS, it's in Philadelphia, has set the top priority for the year and beyond as quality. It's number one. So, we are a for-profit hospital system, but quality is our number one. I think that's very important to show, just like Michelle said, that if you have good quality and you have true patient experience and a true mindset of producing the best product and the best service through that service line, you will have the other pieces that flow. You obviously have to manage it, you have to be very diligent in understanding what that business is, but if you do it with the right mission and you really, truly develop those relationships with the surgeons and staff and the patients, then you really will be successful. And I think that that's key to look at and to really read the verbatims from patient experience, read the Google reviews, look at our physician engagement surveys, read those, talk to our staff because they know a lot about what's going on. People forget sometimes to really include those frontline leaders and the influencers that might not have titles. They know what the community wants, they know what the community needs, and we really work with them to make sure that their voices are heard. We also, scour all the Facebook groups. We're all in them, and we're able to see what people want and what they're complaining about as well. And so I think there's a lot of those factors that go into really evaluating what your service line is, besides the financial, which is obvious, and then some of those other factors.
Thank you. So what we're hearing is that the patient experience and the patient's wants and needs are very much taken into consideration when building an effective service line. Along with that is quality. And it also seems that, from what you're saying, that if you build a good quality program that patients want, the money is going to follow with that. So thank you for that. Okay, so the next question is, on number 4, how would you describe the physician's role in your service line and your organization? Who would like to start with that question?
Doesn't matter for you. Okay, I'll start. So the physician role is essential in a service line. You need to have different doctors with subspecialties to be able to define your service line. So, in our CBI, we make sure that we have all aspects of the Cardiac and Vascular Institute cover. You know, one thing that is kind of new to Memorial is actually hiring cardiac imagers. It was very important to have cardiac imagers as part of the team to be able to do what we need to do. So the physician input is, is very important. And at Memorial, we kind of have like a dyad leadership structure that me and the chief of the CBI, which is Mike Portelli, our cardiac surgeon, work over the entire service line. But we go to all of our medical directors to get their input to help, validate what they need and to help with the decisions that we make. So we really are physician-centric. We don't do things without the physicians because, you know what, they're the ones that are frontline with the patients and what the needs are and, talk and communicate. So I do think that they're very, very important. You can't do it without physicians. You have good physicians that are engaged and committed, your service line will follow.
Absolutely. For me, I have two dyad relationships. At the Women's Institute, Dr. Kathy Schilling is our medical director, and she's been the heart and soul and the driver of all of the clinical changes we've had since that piece of our organization started. And it's never enough. It's what's next. And so having a physician leader that is not only engaged, but is incredibly forward-thinking, I think makes or breaks a service line. And as an example, she was one of the doctors that helped bring 3D mammography to the world. And most recently, she said and looked into AI and has done a clinical study that she presented at Vienna not too long ago, where they used AI for 2 years, and they looked back at the 2 years prior to using it, and then the 2 years they were using it, and found a 23% increase in the diagnosis of breast cancer in the use of AI, and that now is, you're reading about it in every journal. That was a doctor based in a community hospital who said, we can do the best and offer the best to our community, and here's how. And then at our Cancer Institute, Dr. Louise Morel is the medical director, and she's a medical oncologist by training and practice, who then went into genetics and brought the concept to Boca Regional of not just pieces, but having a whole cancer care program, and she was the driver of that. But she enlisted other physicians in all the subspecialties to work together with us as administrators to make that happen. I think those components are all critical to a service line's success.
And so physicians really are key to any service line success. I think that I've always been taught that you can build it, but if you don't have physicians, they won't come. So you want to make sure that you have a physician secure. You could have a beautiful inpatient rehab facility, $27 million that you can't find a PM&R physician. And so really having that as part of the service line development conversation of what your physician recruitment plan is and what you're going to do in timelines to be able to recruit and attract and retain the physicians is really crucial. You have to have strong medical directors who are entrepreneurial and who want to see the service line grow, see it be successful, bring those quality outcomes. So really finding the right person or people or specialists is very critical to any success. We have, Samantha is excellent with the physician recruitment and with business development and relationships. So I honestly go to saying having the right team as well, beyond just the physicians, is also key. Having someone who is excellent with those relationships and coordinating those relationships really does make you successful. So when you're developing a service line, look at not only what your nursing needs and your staffing needs are, but make sure you understand what your physician needs are. Because without that, you won't have a service line. The patients won't choose to come to you either. They have many choices in Palm Beach County and Broward County and Miami-Dade County. Really, we have probably one of the most saturated markets with hospitals and healthcare offerings in America, if not even further. And I think that's a great thing because it really does make everyone produce better quality outcomes, and it makes everyone have that competitive spirit. But we also work together and we learn from each other, and that's what I really love about this county is that we we can all sit together, we can talk and exchange ideas, and have that without fear of losing market share or not being the best, because we really want to provide that best patient care. And so I think we're very fortunate in that, and I think that we have such strong physicians who have great pedigrees and great experience, and they want to be part of that change. And I think that this market is very different in that aspect, and I think we're very fortunate to be in it to work with those great physicians.
Thank you so much. Well said. Thank you. So we have another question here for our panelists. It's how important are support services towards the success of your service line? Who would like to talk?
It's my favorite question
This is
as
your
a
favorite.
COO.
Go for it.
So you see, I know all the other COOs in here also appreciate that. So we've actually changed from support services and ancillary services to essential services. So I really brought that into our hospital because I really don't like the term ancillary. I don't even like the term support services, because I just think that it really takes away from how essential they are. So just like our physicians are essential, we have to make sure that we have qualified people and qualified staff to be able to deliver those services and deliver that to the community. And so I think that really looking at everyone and seeing how will they fit into the service line is so key. And that takes sometimes looking at that during the business planning stage, a year before, during construction, right before you start. So what we do and what I've been able to do at all my facilities is really have that multidisciplinary team. And so when we have launches and we have construction projects, we all sit together and we talk about all the details, we go through what everyone's role is, and it's sometimes 30 people, 40 people who are all part of making this happen. Sometimes they're not even located in the local facility, but you work with them, you connect with them. But we have that team, and so it's interesting because you obviously want the physician, you want the staff, but there's also really minute details like, do we have trash cans available? Do we have whiteboards? And I know that when I first started out, I remember that because I didn't realize that we had little trash cans. And we opened one of our facilities and we didn't have any trash cans. And so I will never forget that. I always ask, do we have trash cans? And everyone looks at me like I'm crazy because the process has gotten better over the years. But I think, it really is a good lesson. And I think that really taught me that you can't just assume that everyone has it or everyone understands, even that they know what it is to look for. And that's why you have to lean on other facilities, especially if you're part of a system, which it sounds like a lot of us are, but lean on them and don't reinvent the wheel, as people say, because there really are the resources. Again, you can reach out to other facilities as well and ask them questions to make sure that we're providing that service. But I am a huge proponent of essential services. I always advocate for essential services, and that includes finance, case management, departments that aren't traditionally operations departments. But you really have that whole span for EBS and food services. Are there going to be enough trays to deliver? Do you need more parts for food services? It's really all of those details of how you can make the service line successful, so you don't have to backtrack by just opening it quickly and having rapid growth without that well thought out plan. So,
Your passion shows.
I love essential services. So.
Thank you.
Well, I'll just start out with a question. How does your day go when the computers don't work? Yeah.
Or with the microphone this one.
Well, the microphone you can shout, but the air conditioning, just every bit of support services has to work in the entire biosphere of a healthcare organization. And whether it's the outpatient pieces, the inpatient pieces, it's all got to work. And support services are the backbone that keeps it all going. Because without it, none of the clinicians can do what they need to do. And you add to that if something's broken, what else is going to be ruined by not having whatever that system is working. So support, it has to be one team, one mission, or you're not going to succeed no matter what the service line is or what the part of the organization is that you work in. So it's a critical factor in the success of any healthcare facility.
No, absolutely. Exactly what both Elizabeth and Maureen have said is that support services are very important. It takes a village to take care of a patient and to run a service line. And there's nobody that's more important than the other. Everybody is equally important, pulling together for the care of the patient and for the vision and moving forward. So we couldn't do it without support services. So. And I love essential. I have to bring that back to the work.
Everyone can say it. Make it a full self-portrait.
Essential task will be incredible.
we even had a conversation initially, though, how important it is when a patient first wants to make an appointment.
Yes.
And that process, that support that's needed to make sure that a patient can actually get through the
Right.
process.
Access.
You were talking about that. Did you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
No, just I mean for access to care and when they're making an appointment, to make sure that you get them to the right doctor that they need to see. You know, calling a cardiologist, you know, it may not be the cardiologist that you need to see the patient. It might be an the ED physician, or it may be an advanced heart failure physician. So that is paramount to be able to get the patient to the right physician. And
It's part of the experience.
yes, it is.
Incorporates the entire process, is that the patient needs ease of entry into
Yes.
your facility and then to get placed in the right location.
And every step of the way, it has to be a warm encounter. If somebody calls and gets a nasty appointment scheduler, they're gonna pick up the phone and call somebody else. And so it takes an ongoing, and one of the things that we're finding to be really helpful is using an internal employee satisfaction survey process on a regular basis. What's working, what's not, what do you like, what's keeping you here, and what's gonna keep you here for the long run. All that data and that information is very, very important in turning it around to give the best customer service you can. And you can't just take the information in. You have to go back out and say, we heard you, that's a tagline we use, we heard you, and here's what we did since you gave us the feedback to try to respond to your requests and needs. Because everybody in this room has people who can pick up tomorrow and go get a job someplace else. And so all of that is so important, because our patients do bond with the employees that they interact with, especially in the service line, because many times they're coming either once a year or once a week or every day, and they want to see those same faces because they build trust. And so it's critical that we as leaders keep them.
Okay, so our question number 6 is, are there any internal challenges such as integration issues or silos to break when you have your service lines? Who would like to take that one first?
Oh, we don't have an you know, wouldn't be truthful. I don't think if any of us said there aren't silos in healthcare. Just in one of our buildings, in our main Cancer Institute building, we have 3 floors, and they're carved up with radiation oncology and imaging and medical oncology and surgical oncology, and it takes a lot of work to make it vertical and not horizontal. And so it's really important that on a regular basis, whoever's responsible for the service line is ensuring that we're not just focusing on one piece of the pie, but looking at the whole pie to make it work smoothly. And then all of those support services we mentioned earlier could easily be siloed, and so it really takes a lot of effort to make sure that the connections are all working.
I think it's really important to have a singular leadership vision and direction, because if you end up segmenting any part of the service line, you end up having to work harder to get your message across and to be able to accomplish what you need that needs to be done for your service line. So silos happen everywhere, and I feel it's part of my job as being the vice president over the NCBI. I just have to keep on trying and going to the right people to try to get what we need for our service line. Because other people have different priorities. The majority of my service line is at Memorial Regional Hospital. Memorial Regional Hospital is busting at the seams. We don't have enough beds. And so, therefore, that poses a problem, because I need to grow my service line, but, we're gonna build a tower, but, that's not happening, tomorrow. It's gonna take time to do that. So it's just something that you have to learn to work with the silos, because it's not gonna go away, because everybody has different priorities.
Yeah, so I think very similar, it's already been said, but Wellington Regional is actually probably the best hospital I've worked at in terms of the relationships between the directors and the rest of the executive team. People have been there for many years, there's new people, but we're very close in what we do. We really, people say it, but we really are like family there. We really like to work together. Even with that, sometimes there's silos, and in any hospital I've been in, there's obviously silos that happen. I think a lot of times it's unintentional, and I think really getting to the root and the core of why that's happening is very important versus just assuming that a silo happened with malintent, and getting down to the understanding of that, really educating the directors or managers and staff, and talking about what that priority is, talking about what the resources are, and being able to have that consistent messaging at all layers, and making sure that everyone is bought into that. That's key to be able to break down the silos and to be able to communicate. I also think having strong relationships from the executive level is so important. So being able to talk with our CEO, CFO, CNO, CMO, and being able to work together and have those disagreements or arguments behind closed doors and then walking out with a united vision. I think that that's something that sounds easy, sometimes it's easier said than done, but really building that dyad relationship with operations and nursing or operations and medicine, et cetera, is very key. And I think once that relationship is there, and once you know that there's not any chasms with that, then I think that you're able to really make changes and work together versus compete. You don't want to have competition amongst your C-suite members or executive team members, because that's really how you start breaking down those silos, or you start creating those silos that can really cause issues for patients, it can cause issues for advancement, growth, and so you really have to work on developing those relationships first so that you can really implement that throughout the entire facility.
Thank you. Okay. And we have another question here for you, which is, the question here is, how do you balance patient and community needs versus the financial impact to your organization?
Want me to start?
Sure.
So, first off, I'm lucky that I work. Memorial is a safety net hospital. And so the Memorial healthcare system was built for the residents of South Broward to be able to provide with them the needs that they need for their health care without leaving South Broward. So that's number one. So that's great that we really don't, we do what's right for the community. And I'm going to give you an example in a minute of what we did for the community in the CDI. But still, you have to be responsible, working together, even though I'm over a service line, we work together as a healthcare system, to save money and to do bundled payment and that. So we are minimizing the amount of money that we're spending and capitalizing on our profits of that. But, 10 years ago, we made a decision to do adult heart transplant at Memorial Healthcare System. And you may or may not know this, but when you do heart transplant, you have to do 10 heart transplants until CMS will come and certify you. And when you do those 10 heart transplants, you are responsible for those patients for the rest of the life of their organ, all their meds, all their hospitalization, everything. And actually, Memorial ended up doing 13 adult heart transplants before CMS came in and certified us. It cost us about $20 million to start this program up. And now 10 years into it, the halo effect of our ECMO and VAD and mechanical circulatory programs, are making money and has even the score. But that didn't stop us from going forward with adult heart transplant. So, and I believe that is because of our safety net. But, I think it would be hard to be able to, and it's coming in this day and age with healthcare, that some service lines are going to be, eliminated because of, being able to sustain them. So.
Good story. Actually, just as a side note, I was at Tampa General at the time when they did their first heart transplant back in the early 80s. So I was enjoying your story about that, because it's true, but you're in a non-profit type of environment, and many times you are going to do a procedure that may not necessarily be profitable, we'll put it in quotes at that moment, but you're looking at the longer term effects and what will contribute eventually to the community. So and certainly appreciate that story. Who would like to go next on that question?
So, you know, you hear Boca Raton and you think, oh, it's, you know, it's all peaches and cream. And most, it's pretty good. But most of our patients are insured. That's real. But 75% of our patients are Medicare or managed Medicare. And so our margins are really pretty tight. And so as a service line leader, I feel it's my job to run our areas with the highest level of patient care and quality, but as efficiently as we can. Because every bit that we bring in from the outpatient helps offset some of those losses that the inpatient areas incur. And so I think that service lines help an organization in many, many different ways, not just being the front door to bring people in, whether it's screening, imaging, ultimately diagnosis, or being able to bring back the revenue that we're able to generate in the outpatient world. It's really a very important part of what a service line brings to an organization. So even though we have very much highly insured, it's not all great paying, but in the outpatient settings, it's better than it certainly is on the inpatient settings.
So this is a little bit of an aside, but I really am appreciative of the way that UHS does capital. I think capital is a really important part of service line. It's how we continue to grow, it's how we continue to maintain. And I just share that instead of having one bucket for capital, some hospitals do, we actually have a design and construction bucket, which is just for all of our infrastructure so that we're able to replace our chillers or our air handler units. That's a separate 5-year plan that can't be touched by anything else. Then we have corporate strategic, which is like a really big projects, you know, $5 million and above, that will be very large for the community. We have industry strategic, which is pure ROI, and so we're able to do all of our projects there that will bring that return, and really are those service line projects. And then we have the largest bucket is actually routine infrastructure, and so that's so that we can replace chairs or we can make sure overhead tables are taken care of. So I really enjoy the fact that there's not that competing priority between the capital allocation. We're able, I think that helps with silos as well, because you're really not competing against taking something from an inpatient unit when you have something on the surgical side that can produce a large IRR. And so I think that really helps the overall culture, and it helps us continue to make sure quality is first. We're not skimping on really important items that our inpatients need or that our overall hospital needs or our patients and our staff need. We're able to really focus on both, so we have 2 separate sections of how we can do that. So I really appreciate that, and I think that helps with financial considerations, it helps with planning, and helps with really having that overall view. The other thing too, I think that you talked about as well, is sometimes service lines do have to potentially not continue, and I think you'll see that a lot. I know there was a Becker's article a few days ago that showed all the service lines that have been closing, and the majority of them were OB services. And so I think just continuing to make sure that you really continue to assess and decide what is bringing value to the community, not just what is exciting and fun and sexy for the heck of it, just to grow. I think really being strategic in what not to open, what not to grow, what to maximize, and a lot of that is that operational excellence. Sometimes just because you don't have all of the exciting things, you don't have this huge city service line, doesn't mean that you have to. There's excellent hospitals that do that. There's excellent providers of that, and you can partner with them. You can work with them. You don't have to be everything to all people. You have to give good quality, and you have to see those returns on it as well. And so I think that's a really important consideration, is that just because you can doesn't mean that you should open everything and that you should have rapid growth. That's where all of the potential concerns with different staffing comes into play, et cetera. And I think that is something that I really appreciate about Wellington Regional. Our CEO is very strategic in what she wants to start, what she wants to maximize, and what she doesn't want. So I think that that's something that really is important, especially for longevity and sustainability of a hospital. And I think it's something that's not talked about enough, that sometimes you don't want to have just that pure rapid growth. You really need to be strategic and optimizing what you provide at the hospital.
Very well said. Thank you. So we have, now it is time for questions. And I'd like to know from the audience. Yes, we've got a question, and without the microphone.
I'm loud.
Wow.
Hi. With the big push in healthcare for hospital at home, are your service lines or organizations, thinking about that approach and what maybe, you're either planning or looking to do, or, how is that coming to play in your organizations or service lines?
So, I think COVID has helped us with that because with COVID, we were trying to keep patients out of the hospital and that, and it kind of really opened up the segue for telemedicine and that. And so with telemedicine, we figured that, you can end up seeing a doctor and getting care and get a prescription and that. And so I think that has also led to remote patient monitoring. And so now with, with our advanced heart failure team, we have a lot of patients that need care at home. And so we're, able to see, what the patient's blood pressure is and their pulse ox and a 12 lead EKG and things like that. So more and more things are being done in the home, and I do feel in the next few years that we're going to see more of this in the home. And actually, everything always makes a full circle. When I was a kid back in the 1960s, the doctors used to come to when I was a kid, would come to the patient's homes and see you at home. And I do think that we're going to end up going back to some sort of a model with that, with APPs or PAs seeing patients in the home. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, and there's a man here who does that business. So.
Yes, hi, my name is Seth from Doctor Services.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm sorry, my voice is a little bit timid. My name is Seth from Doctor's House Calls. We are a mobile physician group that helps hospitals reduce their readmissions. First of all, I want to thank you ladies. It was very informative and I appreciate your time. Our expertise is helping hospitals reduce their readmissions. We cover Miami, Broward, Palm Beach, and the entire Treasure Coast. No discouragement on any doctor in any office, but there's no doctor that knows what we know when we go into someone's home. Because not only are we seeing them medically, but we're seeing socioeconomically. So why does Lisa Smith keep falling? Because she's got 20 throw rugs in her house. No doctor in an office knows these things. And you refer to back in your day, well, I remember my mom getting ready to go to the doctor. She's doing her hair, she's doing her makeup. Mom, what are you doing? You're going to the doctor. You want to look your worst when you go to the doctor, not your best. But that demographic, that's what they did. And we have to realize that in today's world, telemedicine is fantastic as an adjunct. It's great for 99% of the people that are here. However, 90-year-old Mrs. Smith, I don't know how to put that RPM on. I don't know how to do this. She needs someone to put her hands on her. She needs a doctor to see her. These people, because of transportation, ambulation, too sick to get out of bed, non-compliant. That's difficult in getting in the doctor because of things like COVID. A lot of these seniors are afraid to go into the doctor's office.
Yep.
So
let me grab the microphone back, and
Sorry.
That's okay. But what we do, it really is the golden age of cancer care right now. Cancer care is evolving every day in a way that is ultimately going to change, and we're not going to necessarily need the facilities that we have today forever. Right now, the FDA is looking at what are called multi-cancer early detection tests. Those are lab tests that are going to be able to diagnose multiple kinds of cancers before they are large enough to even show up on an x-ray. And that is going to change cancer even more than it is today. But today, as an example, 95 or more % of mastectomies are done as an outpatient. So patients don't have to stay in the hospital. They're able to go back home. More and more chemotherapy is oral. And so you dispense pills to patients. They don't have to come in and be in an infusion center for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for months. It's changing rapidly, and I think as organizations, we have to recognize there will always be some need for patients to come in. We're not going to be able to have radiation therapy machines, I don't think. Shrink down have the ability to do it at home, but more and more and more care is going to be able to be done in a very transactional way, and often at home.
Actually, there is
Do
an
that.
old physician guy,
Let me-
Dr. Pomper.
Let me
who
get
does
some
mobile
questions.
radiation.
Do you have a question that you want to ask the panel? Is there a question?
No, she had mentioned about mobile
Well-
radiation.
Okay,
Sorry.
no, it's okay. Let me get some more questions.
Here, actually, I want to answer.
I'm
Um,
sorry.
What's that?
Oh,
So
yes,
that's
please.
okay. No, just last night I saw, my husband showed me a video that was from 1993. You might have seen this recently, but of an interview at Burger King, and they were talking about how credit cards were being introduced. And they were saying, this isn't gonna last, who has time for credit cards? It's a really good video, you should watch it, but it's very funny because it talks about the technology that was only 30 years ago, and many of us were alive then, and I probably don't necessarily remember it like that, but it was very interesting to hear those interviews, and I think a lot of that correlates with what is happening and what needs to happen in healthcare. I think that, everyone says it, but healthcare is traditionally pretty far behind when it comes to technology, and I think we're kind of in that credit card cash stage right now of saying, oh, I don't know about this, we're always gonna need this person and this person and this person, and being a little bit blinded to the fact that there's many other companies, competitors, your hospital systems are not your only competitors or your biggest competitors, really the Optums, the Uniteds, the Amazons. They're really coming out in full force with that technology, and I think that we have to be able to be open to that and to work with that. I think we have to really embrace Gen Z, the younger generations that have those ideas and know where healthcare is and how they access healthcare. I think the access to healthcare is changing rapidly. You can do many things on apps. You can get your own labs ordered for a fraction of the cost on Jason Health. There's all these different types of companies that exist so that you don't have to even leave your house or go to a doctor. And I think that we have to be very open to that and understand what populations are going to utilize those services, how can we integrate ourselves into that, but then how can we also continue to provide those high acuity services to the patients who are truly critical and need those. Because I think that's really where we're going to have to focus, is being that high acuity hospital to patients and allowing some of those other services to go over to outpatient settings or to even at home settings. So I think there's a lot that's going on. I think AI is a good thing. I think it's going to really enhance the care that our patients receive. I think we need to really embrace that and live that instead of being scared of it. Because I think that's how we advance and how we provide the best care possible. So
You know what, you're absolutely right, Elizabeth. Also, people don't realize this, but I do, and that your Apple Watch. How many people have Apple Watches? Apple Watches are able to detect if someone's in AFib. So this is going to impact patients' arrhythmias and decrease, hopefully, people having strokes and that. So, it is amazing.
yeah, and I think we just be open to it as it comes and just continue to look at what the advances can be. But I really encourage everyone to think about how can you adopt some of those practices? How can you become more accessible to our patients? And our patients aren't just the traditional people that we think of and the traditional people who want to consume those services. We really have to look at it differently, and we have to be advanced in that. I don't know if we'll, as an industry, catch up to some of those other companies, but I think that we can learn from them. We can learn from different industries as well and see what they're doing so that we can bring that to our community, because that's really the best for our community.
As you were discussing the cancer treatment, and of course you were mentioning how things have changed so much with even credit cards, I'll tell you a quick story. My father happened to have lung cancer. He was a smoker. This was back in 1971. We went to Mayo Clinic because that was the premier place to go for cancer. But there weren't any treatments like we have today. There was absolutely nothing except surgery. That was it, only surgery. And the truth is, he didn't survive the surgery because, again, what do they do if you have lung cancer? They took out his lung. Well, you can't live without lung. And that was the protocol for that. So the reason I'm telling you the story is it always sits in the back of my head how far we've come in terms of our care for patients and just the massive strides that we've taken in terms of a diagnosis and also the treatment process. And as you were saying, AI technology is even taking us further in that process. So tremendous things are happening. And I think sometimes we don't realize how much has changed over the years until you maybe have a personal story or something that comes to mind to kind of highlight the fact that we've just changed so much in where we are today with our healthcare providing services. So thank you. Any other questions I would like to have for our panelists tonight? Yes, please. Thank you. Please stand up.
Sure. Good afternoon. Great discussion. ask you what new technologies or strategies that you have put in place in your different service lines based on all the innovations that are coming at us from all angles, and how is that changing the way you deliver healthcare?
I think that just generally, it's not as advanced as I was referring to, but making sure that we have online scheduling, making sure that we have remote check-in, being able to have that telemedicine offering. Another thing too that comprehensive stroke centers have is the ability to use AI to be able to look at images in real time from anywhere. And so we have to look at AI. There's different types of rapid also, but it's really fantastic technology that's been around now for a few years. But it really allows the interventional radiologists, the ER physicians, the whole care team to be able to, right as the CT is taken, see those images and start being able to predict what is the feasibility or how much of the actual brain tissue is going to survive. And that's all from analysis from AI. And so it's happening now already. We have those capabilities in our hospitals. There's many different capabilities that we have a service line. Robotic technology is a good example as well. You're able to do simulations. You can be across the country and learn robotics without having to go into the OR. You have those tools that you're able to use. And so it's really going to advance how we can train our next clinicians, how we can train our physicians, and how we can bring that to the forefront of healthcare. So we have a few of those things already in place, and we're continually assessing to see what else we can bring.
And I think it's important that you try to capture as much of what the patient might need when you have them. So as an example, what we've started to do recently is when women come in for their mammograms, we do a swab and get their genetic testing done if they choose to do that. And by doing that, we're able to provide them with an amazing amount of information, and it doesn't involve multiple stops or multiple visits. Additionally, I think we've got to be able to compete with the retailers of the world. As the healthcare industry used to be, they would come to us and we expected it. Now we've got to figure out how to be competitive. So as an example, with Baptist, what we're able to do for the oral chemotherapy medicines is deliver it to the patients. Instead of making the patients have to figure out, where am I going to go get this difficult to get medicine? How am I going to go pick it up? How long is it going to take? We bring it to them. So I think it's really going to be more and more important to do as much as we can when we have them, and then do everything we can to support them when they're not at our facilities.
In the cardiac arena, there's a lot of innovations that have come out that are game changers. And so I'll talk about a few of them. The one that I really think that everyone is going to be hearing about more in the future, it's called eCPR. And so when somebody's heart stops and you're doing CPR on them, if it's a witness arrest, they are now coming up with that they're going to put that patient on ECMO. And ECMO is perfusion for a person outside of the OR. So what they do is when someone's heart has stopped, they will put you on ECMO, and ECMO will perfuse your brain and your organs and will breathe for you without your brain or your heart or your lungs working. And then the doctors figure out what's going on with you. You might have had a massive heart attack to your left main artery, and they're able to put a stent and open it up and save your life. So eCPR is something that is the newest thing in cardiology that is going to be coming out. Working in a heart transplant program, there's only 140 hospitals in this country that do adult heart transplant. And so I've learned so many different modalities and things that have happened. And just in the last 10 years, watching this firsthand, when patients are getting a VAD, which is a ventricular assist device, it's a thing that is implanted into your ventricle that will keep you alive until you get a heart transplant. And some patients live like that for the rest of their life. They have made so many advances with these VADs. People used to have all kind of clotting problems and issues with this and driveline infections. I'm telling you now, we very rarely see any problems with VADs. I mean, it still does happen, but it has really been perfected. So those are things like you know, you don't realize that, you know, you have all these things to keep people alive and that. And just ECMO on its own. So, you know, if someone gets the flu and they can't breathe, and you have them on a ventilator, and there's nothing that you can do to help them, you put them on ECMO, and we've had patients on ECMO for 120 days, and the machine is rated for them. These people are totally with the program, walking around in the CVICU on this ECMO machine, and we take them off, you know, we can fix their lungs or whatever, and we take the ECMO out, and they live a normal life. 100% of these patients would have been dead. And so those are just a few of the innovative things that, you know, that we're trying to do to keep you alive until you're 100 years old.
That's great. No, thank you for that. Again, it's the innovation and the changes that are so much occurring with healthcare. It's really incredible the strides we've taken. More questions, please. One more? Anybody else have anything they'd like to ask our panel?
Yeah, right.
Yes.
At what level do you look at a service line and say it's not working anymore and have to work it? You know, obviously, you mentioned earlier the community, the financial, but at what point, different hospitals, obviously, there are different hospitals there, but at what point do you say, although it's very good for the community, the hospital can no longer support this service line? What's a period of time? How long do you give it to survive? A year, 2 years, 3 years?
That's a great question, and I don't know
It's
the
a hard
answer.
question.
Because fortunately, I've never been in that situation. But I would think that if you're part of the system, you have to take a look at where does it make sense to put the resources, and can you consolidate? What will be the negative impact to the community if you do stop it in your area? What's the, you know, one of the bullet points earlier was the religious aspect. You know, if you're the only Catholic hospital in a community and you are no longer delivering babies, is that the right decision? Those are not easy, but I think that you have to do the analysis because critical care doctors say sometimes we have to sacrifice a limb to save the life. You know, less often now, but I think those are hard decisions that have to be made at times. And one of the benefits of system healthcare is that you do have sister hospitals. So maybe you do stop it at one and continue at another. But a tough decision that I hope I never have to make.
So at a previous facility, during COVID actually, we did close down our pediatric unit, and that was a very hard decision, but we had the average daily census of 1 at the time, and so you have all of those different nurses and staff who are caring for those patients. And while it's very important, there was a hospital about 3 miles down the road that had a fantastic children's hospital. They were again very good at what they did, and so having a one patient unit really didn't make sense. We also didn't have a PICU there, and so the other hospital did. And so really evaluating and seeing, how do we keep up those skills and how do we continue to provide those skills? Because if you only see one patient, similar to her, where you don't see enough patients, then it's not a benefit to that patient to be seen at your hospital. And so I think really having that conversation, that was my first experience with the service line closing. Thankfully, it was my only experience, but I think it is. It's hard. Thankfully, we were able to redirect the staff who were in there who had great training. They were able to maintain their positions. Sometimes that doesn't happen, and sometimes entire units close. Thankfully, ours was very small, so it really wasn't a huge impact to those staff members. But that's a consideration also: is who is it going to affect? Is there another service in the area, or you have rural critical access to the hospital that if you close that service line, you're not going to be able to have that? So it's really about the community. I really take it back to what are the access points in the community, and that really helps weigh that decision so that you can really focus on what those high quality service lines are, and that you really put the resources into that instead of being spread too thin and having 15 different things that are okay, and instead of having a few that are excellent and are the best possible quality. And so I think that's really the discussion of when you should close a service line or reduce a service line. No one wants to do it, but I think that it's important because that's the best quality, to be able to be proud of the services you provide and to be able to continue to invest in that capital and those trainings for those staff. That's really how we continue to get better. And so I think that's important. I go back to OB because I do think that there's, again, it's going to become more and more frequent that different OB programs are closing. You see it more and more. And I think that's challenging for the community because you really do have an influx of other patients who you might not have seen before or who have very heavy needs prenatally and postnatally. And I think it's important just to be able to really, again, assess and prepare if other service lines close at other hospitals. So it's not just about your hospital potentially closing a service line, but being able to be nimble if another service line does shut down and you need to absorb very quickly those services. So I think just really having that community overall view is really important.
I don't have any experience with closing down service lines. All I can talk about is, I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and UPMC bought out the hospitals up in that Allegheny Valley area. And when they did that, they closed some of the hospitals down, and there was a hospital that was close to my hometown that they decided to close down. And I just know that that put a very large hardship on the people that lived in the Springdale, New Kensington, Chesapeake area, because now they had to travel 20 miles to the nearest hospital now. So I just think that when you do something like that, it's all about the community and what you can provide for, the people that need it, and you've got to take those things into consideration. So.
Well, I would really like to take this opportunity to thank our panelists for their time and their expertise.
So, thank you all. This was a really, really great program. As a thank you to all of our panelists and our moderator, we will be making a donation to ACHE's Leadership Foundation. So thank you guys again. A couple announcements before we get out of here, and again, thank you to our hosts. This was a great facility. So our next education event will be held October 19th. It's going to be at University of Miami. It's going to focus on retention and retainment and hiring. And prior to that event, starting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we're going to have a job fair there. There's over 15 healthcare organizations who will be there. There's going to be opportunities for nursing representation, healthcare management representation. So please join us for that, followed by the education event. If you are in the Orlando area on October 4th, ACHE statewide and the Florida Hospital Association are doing a partner luncheon. And there's going to be a 1.5 education offered there. And it has 4 panelists of CEOs throughout the state. So if you're able to join us there, we would love that. November 9th at Memorial Regional Hospital, we are going to have another education event. So people who are trying to get their credits, we have a lot of education coming up, as well as a networking event in November as well. So follow us on LinkedIn. You'll get all the information, and a really big event that we haven't done in a couple of years, but December 1st is a Friday. We are doing our CEO roundtable breakfast. So we'll have about 10 CEOs. It's for members only. So if you are not a member and you want to attend that event, please sign up to be a member. But more to come on that. And thank you all for your time and participation.
The survey.
Oh, how could I forget? Please, there are QR codes on your table. We value your feedback. Please fill out our survey. Thank you. Nice job. There's so much food.
No, it's great having you.
We need the hardworking staff.